welcome to The Explainer. Today I'm putting on my clinical nutritionist hat to walk you through a massive, yet completely ignored metabolic deficit. We're talking about a silent deficiency that is very likely messing with your cellular health right at this very moment. In the clinic, I see these symptoms constantly misdiagnosed or honestly just brushed under the rug. So we're going to dive deep into the data, the biology, and the exact protocol you need to restore balance to your body. Here's our clinical roadmap for today. We'll establish your vital baseline, explore the underlying cellular physiology, walk through a differential diagnosis of 7 big warning signs, and finally, look at cardiovascular prevention. Let's get right into it. Section 1. The vitals. Understanding the 4,700 milligram baseline. Listen, when it comes to essential nutrients, there is one critical metric you absolutely must commit to memory: 4,700. 4,700 milligrams. That is the recommended daily intake required for an average adult just to maintain basic metabolic functions. I really want you to let that number sink in. To put it into perspective, no other daily nutrient requirement, not calcium, not magnesium, not vitamin C, even comes close to this massive threshold. And the crazy thing, 4,700 milligrams isn't some high therapeutic dose used to fix a medical issue. It's literally just the baseline you need to prevent a deficiency. And this right here perfectly illustrates the public health crisis we're dealing with. Fewer than 3% of Americans actually hit that 4,700 milligram target. Just 3%. That means 97% of the population is living in a state of chronic potassium depletion. For most of my patients, the question isn't whether they're deficient, but rather just how deficient they actually are. They're walking around chronically depleted and have absolutely no idea. Moving on to part 2, the physiology. Unlocking the cellular electrolyte pump. So what's actually happening at the cellular level? The foundational concept you need to grasp here is the sodium-potassium pump. To ground this in real medical science, you have to realize that this is literally your body's microscopic electrical generator. Your cells rely entirely on this mechanism to generate electrical impulses and regulate fluid balance. Without it, your cells simply cannot communicate, and your muscles literally cannot contract. It's that important. But here's the catch. Potassium doesn't work alone. There's a crucial, non-negotiable relationship between potassium and its cellular co-pilot magnesium. You see, that sodium-potassium pump we just talked about, it can't run without cellular energy, known as ATP. And to produce ATP, your body absolutely requires magnesium. Because these two minerals are completely interdependent, a deficiency in one almost always impairs the other. You really need both of them to keep that electrical generator running smoothly. All right. Part 3, the differential diagnosis. We're counting down 7 major warning signs of deficiency. Coming in at number 7, chronic constipation and digestive stalling. Now, a lot of people fail to connect sluggish digestion with an electrolyte imbalance, right? But clinically, we know that potassium is the primary regulator of the body's smooth muscles. And guess what? Your entire gastrointestinal tract is basically just a tube of smooth muscle. Without adequate potassium, those coordinated contraction and relaxation waves, what we call peristalsis, they just break down, causing your whole digestive tract to essentially stall out. To show you just how serious this can get, we can look at a severe medical complication called paralytic ileus. We often see this in hospital settings, especially after major surgeries. The immense physical trauma triggers this massive spike in stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. That huge stress response rapidly flushes potassium right out of the body, leading to such a profound drop in the mineral that the intestines basically become completely paralyzed. Moving on to sign number 6, abdominal bloating and fluid retention. Whenever patients wake up feeling puffy or have facial swelling, they almost always blame a salty takeout meal. But more often than not, the real culprit is a potassium deficit. Potassium and sodium operate like a cellular seesaw to manage your fluid. When your potassium drops, your kidneys just stop excreting sodium, and boom, you retain excess water. So to flush that fluid out, you don't just need less sodium, you need more potassium. Things like avocados and bananas are great here. And a quick clinical pro tip, if you're trying to correct this, look for high-quality, comprehensive electrolyte blends. Don't bother with those isolated potassium pills. They're restricted by law to incredibly tiny doses and won't get you anywhere near that 4,700 milligram baseline. Sign number 5 is frequent urination and excessive thirst. While these are the absolute classic hallmarks of diabetes, they're actually classic indicators of low potassium too. An electrolyte deficit really messes with your kidney's ability to concentrate urine, which leads to large volumes of diluted fluid leaving the body. Plus, there's a very strict two-way street between potassium and insulin. The beta cells in your pancreas literally rely on potassium to secrete insulin properly. Because of this, chronic deficiency can actively worsen insulin resistance. For my patients, pairing a potassium-rich diet with a lower carbohydrate lifestyle is often the most effective way to restore this metabolic balance. Sign number 4 is tingling and numbness, or peripheral neuropathy. Patients frequently come in with that annoying pins and needle sensation in their feet and hands. In conventional medicine, these symptoms are almost always blamed exclusively on vitamin B1 or B12 deficiencies. But think back to our sodium-potassium pump. Potassium generates the actual electrical charges required for nerve impulses to travel. When your cellular potassium is low, your nervous system simply cannot transmit those signals effectively. The true driver is very often an electrical deficit, not just a vitamin 1. Now let's see how all this builds into our cardiovascular warning signs. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever laid your head on your pillow at night and heard your heart loudly thumping, just boom, 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 right in your ears? It's an incredibly specific and honestly a pretty alarming feeling. Well, that thumping is sign number 3, an elevated pulse rate and a pounding heart. This is a massive red flag for sudden potassium depletion. I see this all the time in patients after they've had a really heavy carbohydrate cheat meal or a night of eating sugary desserts. Processing all those refined sugars and carbs causes your body's demand for potassium to instantly skyrocket. If you don't have enough potassium on hand to stabilize the heart's electrical activity, your pulse jumps and your heartbeat becomes super labored and heavy. Which brings us to sign number 2, which escalates this to heart palpitations and arrhythmias. Circling back to the physiology we talked about earlier, potassium and magnesium act as the co-pilots for your heart's natural pacemaker. They maintain the precise electrical voltage required to keep your heart beating in a steady, predictable rhythm. Because they rely on each other so heavily, a deficiency in either one can cause incredibly dangerous skips, flutters, or irregular rhythms in your heartbeat. And finally, sign number 1, the single most common, widely misdiagnosed, and profound sign of a potassium deficiency is persistent fatigue and muscle weakness. We're not just talking about ordinary tiredness that goes away after a good night's sleep. This is a deep, unshakable, I can barely lift my arms kind of cellular exhaustion. Let's look at the cellular reality of this fatigue. You experience weak muscles, sluggish limbs, and this persistent, heavy mental fog. Why? Because it is a complete systemic failure. Your body's cellular pumps simply lack the basic electrical voltage they need to generate energy. You are quite literally running on an empty battery. Part 4, the prognosis. Preventing cardiovascular complications. Take a look at this staggering number, 120 million. That is the number of Americans currently affected by high blood pressure. And chronic potassium depletion is heavily linked to this exact form of hypertension. Yet, conventional medicine frequently labels the vast majority of these high blood pressure cases as having an unknown cause, which means we end up just treating the symptom rather than addressing the actual source. So, to protect your heart, you need a proactive daily protocol. Start your morning with an avocado or maybe a spinach smoothie. At lunch, incorporate a large salad packed with beet greens and use a high-quality, unflavored electrolyte blend in the afternoon to hit any gaps in your nutrition. You have to give yourselves the voltage they desperately need. Because honestly, if 120 million Americans have high blood pressure with an unknown cause, could the missing puzzle piece be hiding right there in the 4,700 milligrams we're failing to eat every single day? Definitely something to think about.